So if Trump, for example, if Trump ordered the Attorney General to send a fraudulent communication to a state, whatever
Again,
body.
you're assuming fraudulent, but continue.
No, I'm giving as a factual matter. As a factual matter, yes, you're God. You know it's fraudulent. If he sends a fraudulent certificate, it's saying that there was election fraud, orders the DOJ to do so, you agree that's core, right?
Sure.
Okay. If he sends an order to the Department of Justice, says, I order you to send a letter to this specific person telling them to go this other person as a means of law enforcement, you agree that's core?
I agree that the memo is core, I guess.
Well, no, the order to send the letter is core.
Continue. I'll try to see where it differentiates.
Wait, come on. We should be able to distinguish right now, right? So in one example, Trump orders the sending of a letter that would say false things about the election. And
okay, I know where I can differentiate for you. So as articulated in the argument, they were saying that communications and the direction of investigations is core. Okay, we agree so far.
Yeah, the president says this is about.
Hold on. Let me finish. I'm going to see if we can make a differentiation and understand each other. Okay. So that means that the communication is core, and the direction of the DOJ in order to conduct specific investigations is one of his core duties. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think so. Let's say he sends out a memo that says, "Go rape this lady." DOJ receives it. Raping a lady is a specific action. In order for the president to be able to do that with full immunity, it needs to be articulable as a part of some pursuit of an authorization by Congress or Article 2 of the Constitution.
You're wrong.
I don't think you can tell me.
No, you're just Connor. You're wrong. The Congress does not tell. The whole reason why we have an executive is because when Congress passes a law, it's up to the executive, our magistrate, to execute that law. And we give him, we hope that he does it in full faith. Why the fuck is the word faith used there? The reason why faithfully is used is because Congress doesn't delineate on every single particular matter for how that function ought to be carried out. The law is passed, and then it's given to the executive for him and him alone to decide how to execute it. You calling into question how that's being executed in a criminal matter is now beyond review.
Okay, hold on. What statute, what authorization by Congress, what constitutional authorization is being fulfilled in this scenario?
The constitutional authorization was when Congress created I believe the FBI was created by Congress.
No.
What?
We're not talking about the same thing.
Hold on, let me finish. I'm getting there. Congress created the office of the FBI, is my understanding, okay? Congress, because I believe every single office was created by Congress, okay? Now, the president, I think by the Constitution, has the authority to nominate an officer of the person that will head that branch, and then Congress, I believe, with consent of either Congress or the Senate, approves, okay? And then Congress passes laws, okay, for the FBI to enforce. The president has the right to confer with his officers about how that branch enforces the laws passed by Congress. Do you disagree with any part of what I've laid out there for where the direct constitutional approval comes from, for the president to confer with his officer for an office that was created by Congress to carry out the laws passed by Congress? Do you disagree with any part of that?
Not so far, no.
And it's core, right? You agree that's core?
Okay, I agree that the communications between him and his subordinate officers is a core duty, yes.
Okay, you agree real quick. The Congress does not authorize whether or not an FBI agent can use a chokehold, or whether or not an FBI agent can use a drop kick, or whether an FBI agent can use a headlock, right? Those policies are left up.
Okay.
They could, but they don't necessarily have to.
They don't have to. I don't even know if they do. I think the FBI policy is not written by Congress. It's written by the FBI.
Yeah, but then the whole reason why people get sued and policies changes over time is through the legislature.
Guys, let's focus on criminal. Focus on criminal. Don't get distracted at any moment with civil, okay?
I can cut to my point. And you don't have to agree with it. Okay. I don't think that, so the reason why the terrorism example is better for your guys' argument is because you can point to an authorization that the president by either detaining. The reason why the rape analogy fails in my estimation is
agree
because
with
you can't point. Let me finish. You can't point to an authorization by Congress or to an Article 2 paragraph or clause.
Yes,
I fucking finish just out of courtesy. You can't point to a clause in Article 2 or an authorization by.
Yes, I can point to both. You're cutting out, and that's why I interrupt you. All right, so I can point to both of those. So number one, Destiny just gave you the constitutional basis for the general conferral with executive agencies and ordering them to do stuff generally. That is the take care clause, the appointment power, and the removal power. Okay, those are constitutional bases. They are also the basis for the core communications at issue in the Trump case. So that's a sufficient constitutional basis. Now, what you're saying then is, well, we need some other thing. You know, it needs to coincide with some purpose that the statute provides. I don't actually agree with that, but fine, I'll give it to you. FBI is given the authority to do investigations, right? And to find out and to solve crimes. The president says, I really think torture is a good way to get information and to solve crimes.
Specifically rape torture.
Yeah. And I think that as part of this investigation and to get really good information, this is the best and most appropriate way to do it to serve that law enforcement function. You agree, absolutely immune, correct?
So, no, I don't agree that he would be immune if he ordered rape torture.
Why?
To find information about
it's anti-constitutional. It's extra legal.
Hold
There's
on.
No authority
wait. What do you mean? Hold on. There is an authority. It's the president conferring with his officer for figuring out how they want to enforce law passed by the legislature. There's literally nothing more constitutional than what we're talking about. It's the president giving orders to his officer for how he wants law to be enforced. Unless the legislature has passed something explicitly or specifically, like saying that something can't be done in a particular way. Or unless,
by the way, you don't look to that because the court explicitly says
the thing that's saying that
generally applicable laws
can't do something in a particular way is the Constitution of the United States.
What?
Wait, no. The whole point of this immunity doctrine, Connor, you're not going to get around this. The point of the immunity doctrine is to insulate you from things that are illegal. Okay, you can't define the scope of the immunity to only things that are legal. All right, I have a very strong argument that what Donald Trump did in his elector scheme and the fake ballot initiatives, that those were violated of the Constitution. They violate what? The fundamental right to vote once it's granted by the state and their state means of assigning electors. It violates the Equal Protection Clause. It violates people's rights to have their votes counted equally. So there are absolutely aspects of constitutional violations that you can find in Trump's conduct, 100%. And so you cannot distinguish the scope of the immunity, the scope of the absolute immunity based on what your prior is about whether it's constitutional or illegal. The point of the immunity
is... Yes, you can. That's literally the argument from the opposing side. What the fuck are you talking about?
So you cannot make sure that the absolute immunity only covers things that Congress allows. That's just not the case.
Pisco, literally, the argument from the majority is that the reason why the communications with the DOJ and the alleged threatened firing is because these are core constitutional duties of the President of the United States. The reason why they're remanding it to the lower courts for the fucking for the communications with the Vice President and for the state electors. I would like the opportunity to finish.
Don't mention it at all.
The reason why they're remanding that. The reason why they're remanding that is because they believe that there are competing interests here. Some that are official and some that aren't. And they're
wait. Hold on, wait. Okay, wait, hold on. Just to be clear, wait. That's not true. That's not why they remanded it. No, that's not why they remanded it with the vice president cover. That is true for the other two issues. The reason why they remanded it for the vice president conversation is because when the vice president is certifying the electoral vote, he's performing a function of the Senate there that falls under the legislature, and the legislature has passed laws about how the Senate performs. That's why it was remanded. It wasn't any type of analysis on whether Donald Trump, all of Donald Trump's actions, hold on, just to be clear, you are explicitly contradicted by Roberts. Roberts says clearly that all those conversations that Trump had with Pence fall under the official purview of the vice president and the president's powers. To quote, whenever the
immunity.
What? No,
and therefore have presumptive immunity.
Stop. Have at least presumptive immunity. The only he says,
my God,
It's
at least versus. Don't hit the at least so hard when the words are almost synonyms.
Hold on, you misunderstand me, sir. When they say he at least has presumptive immunity, you are precluding it being an unofficial act. Because if it was an unofficial act, there might be no immunity at all. Presumptive immunity doesn't mean you're trying to figure out if it's an unofficial act or an official act. An unofficial act...
You're acting very passionately over a very mundane point. I'm barely understanding why you're acting so passionately.
Hold on, this isn't mundane, it's material. The reason why I say at least it's presumptively immune is because this is an official act. That's foregone. The court has already decided that it's an official act.
My inference, I will admit that it's an inference. My inference is that if you are talking about the vice president convening as a member of the Senate and therefore as a part of the judiciary, Donald Trump is going to be hard pressed to show that he has any kind of authority over that ceremony.
Wrong.
And therefore he is acting, hold on, therefore he is acting on the peripheral of his constitutional duties.
No.
And therefore he only has presumptive immunity.
No, hold on. I'll spit there real quick, okay? Whenever the president and vice president discuss their official responsibilities, okay? Whenever they
I'm following.
What?
Yes.
They engage in official conduct. Presiding over the January 6th certification proceeding at which members of Congress count the electoral votes is a constitutional and statutory duty of the vice president. The indictment's allegations that Trump attempted to pressure the vice president to take particular acts in connection with his role at the certification proceeding thus involve official conduct, and Trump is at least presumptively immune from prosecution for such conduct. So now remember, the indictments are saying that he was telling him to essentially toss the results. So that means that Donald Trump telling the vice president to rig the election is presumptively immune, at least, okay? So we're starting there. So we're not on any official act. So at least when Donald Trump
we are in an official act.
No, wait, hold on. Excuse me, sir. Trump is at least presumptively immune. You have absolute immunity, then you have presumptive immunity, and then below that you have unofficial act. We're out of the unofficial act ballgame. We are at least presumptively immune. Do you understand the grammar there?
Yes.
Okay, so there is no unofficial act being spoken of. Everything that's being spoken of thus far is an official act. Correct? Okay. The question then becomes whether that presumption of immunity is rebutted under the circumstances. When the vice president presides over the January 6th certification proceeding, he does so in his capacity as president of the Senate. Despite the vice president's expansive role of advising and assisting the president within the executive branch, the vice president's Article 1 responsibility of presiding over the Senate is not an executive branch function.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not disagreeing so far.
With respect to the certification proceeding in particular, Congress has legislated extensively to define the vice president's role in the counting of the electoral votes, and the president plays no direct constitutional or statutory role in that process. So the government may argue that consideration of the president's communication with the vice president concerning the certification proceeding does not pose dangers of intrusion on the authority and functions of the executive branch. Not that it's not unofficial, but that it is official. But if we question it, it doesn't pose any danger of intrusion on the authority and function of the executive branch.
Okay, what you just said, I don't disagree with a single thing you said. I'm pretty sure you just read the. I'm
just reading Robert's opinion. Yes.
Yeah. So my argument is right there. Donald Trump specifically is vulnerable. And the reason why he's vulnerable is because you can't point to an executive function that would be impeded. And on top of that, you can't point to any authorization from the Congress or from Article 2.
You need to stop saying that. Hold on, Connor, hold on.
Let me finish.
No, stop, because you're already completely factually incorrect. You can point to an exact...
Please enlighten me.
Yes, I will. You can point to an exact function granted to the president. And he might be acting in his official...
What?
Hold on. I'm saying that you could point to it, and he could be acting in his official capacity, but he still could be... He could only get presumptive immunity there if it's not preclusive and conclusive. Okay? Just because you can point to an Article 2 or whatever the fuck thing doesn't mean that... Or if you can't point to that, doesn't mean that you can't criminally prosecute him or something. That's not relevant. No, none of that question is being asked here. No. The president and the vice president have roles that are defined in the Constitution here in terms of them conferring with each other and in terms of what the vice president is doing in the Senate. The only reason why this particular behavior is questionable isn't because you can deem it unofficial. You have to overcome this. What?
I didn't say unofficial.
Okay, but what the burden of the government has to meet is the burden of the government is they have to prove that by questioning this official conduct.
We're fine. We can go. Okay. I don't know why you're telling me things that I agree with.
Okay.
Go ahead. So if you would agree, therefore, that if the president of the United States didn't tell...
He's going Destiny.
Oh, hi, Mrs. Points.
Everybody say hi to Mrs. Points.
Hi.
No, you say, hi, Mrs. Points. Use
I'm
your
Mrs.
title.
Points.
Hello, Mrs. Points.
Thank you.
Connor, so quick question for you. Assume now you're a little slippery. Assume
I'm not being slippery. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have my JD.
Because now we're talking about Pence instead of the difficult hypothetical. That's fine because I think Dan was right, and I don't think your brain can handle that hypothetical right now.
Okay,
So,
now you're just being rude, bitch. We probably have the same intelligence.
No, I'm not saying because you're dumb. I think you're a moral person, and so, or sometimes, and I think that it's hard for you to deal with the logic of the opinion. And so right now, I'm gonna give you another example. Suppose the president.
We don't need another example. As a matter of fact, we need to stick right here. And I'm sorry, I will happily listen to you for minutes at a time. Okay. But I need to make this point. Destiny just said, hold on, let me interrupt you. You're factually wrong. Didn't hear a single thing that I was factually wrong about.
Because I said you were factually wrong because you were implying that they might rule this conduct unofficial. That's not what they're ruling on.
No.
That's what I said.
No, okay. I'm not. Okay. Do we understand presumptive immunity the same way?
What do you think presumptive immunity means?
Okay, my understanding of presumptive immunity is that it's the default that the president is assumed to be immune, but the prosecution can show that he is not immune for XYZ ABC factor.
Yes, what is the XYZ ABC factor?
So the XYZ ABC factor would be he's acting outside of his scope of official duties.
No.
That's what would make him vulnerable.
No. It's about whether...
Please tell me why.
Stephen has
Do not leave me on hanging.
It's about whether or not probing that thing would pose dangers of intrusion on the authority and functions of the executive branch. That's what the test is.
If he has no authority under the executive branch, if he has no authority there, then how could it possibly intrude?
Because the problem is that what a president could be doing as an official act is incredibly broad. If the president goes on TV and he says, Americans, we need to all start killing...
charge for criminal official acts. What are we talking
Wait,
about?
no, hold on. You might be able to charge maybe, but the president could say, sorry, I'm actually immune here, and you need to prove why you, questioning me, the president of the United States, speaking to the public, how the fuck can you hold me criminally liable for that? How is any president going to feel comfortable giving any speech to the American public? And if you can't show as a prosecutor, well, we don't think this would pose any intrusion whatsoever on the president, then you lose. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I said you lose. That's wrong. You don't even get to do anything. The case dies.
Hold on. Yeah. You guys are dancing around my point, but I'll listen to whatever people.
Wait, what am I dancing around? Wait, what are we dancing around? What do you think we're dancing around?
Okay. I am saying that if the president is not authorized to act in a certain capacity, and if he acts in that capacity, then he is vulnerable to criminal prosecution if it's an illegal act.
We all agree with that, but what you're not understanding is that authorized in a certain capacity can theoretically encompass 100% of the actions a person takes. That's the issue.
No, okay, that's not even true.
That is true. That's exactly.
No. Destiny, I will tell you exactly why that's not true, and I will tell you why it's not true in relevance to this case. You just said that anybody acting in an official capacity as the thing that they are, they can claim that it's an official act. No, the whole point is that there's an articulation of core official acts, and then there's peripheral official acts.
Yes, but the court is granted. The court is treating the outer perimeter the same.
You're not going to disagree with me. You're just going to talk passionately about it. Let me finish my statement. My statement is that if he doesn't have the ability to articulate how he has any kind of authority to intercede in a certain situation, and on top of that, he's committing an illegal act, he is vulnerable legally. That's
okay. But what Destiny's saying in response to that is it's trivially easy to come up with something and articulate why it's under your authorities. So, for example, in the case of Trump, he can put up as an intermediary, I'm enforcing the law. I am faithfully executing the law of the United States.
Wait. How do you articulate that he was faithfully executing and enforcing the law in that specific situation?
Yeah, and in that specific situation, the court tells us for us. It says, for example, that the communications with the Department of Justice that relating to what the Department of Justice does, those are absolutely immune. You don't need to look at any facts, right? You
don't look at the vice president. We're talking about the vice president.
So for the vice president's role, you don't look at the circumstances of what happened here. Stephen is trying to tell you that it's about the nature of what's going on, the inherent nature of communications to the vice president about this thing.
I'm going to point out where I feel like you're being slippery. You just said you don't look at the specific circumstances or the nature of what's going on.
That's correct.
Excuse me, wasn't the exact wording from the majority opinion is that this situation specifically needs to be analyzed based off of the specific facts of the situation?
Hold on, wait. Actually, you're completely completely opposite on what was correct there. The goal of this ruling was to apply to all future things. Yes, they want you to be able to look at like the specific facts of a particular thing to make the determination, but you keep obsessing over the outcomes of these things like they can tell you whether or not they're presumptive, whether they qualify or immunity or not. They're not. The outcomes don't matter here. And even Barrett, in her opinion, calls out the fact that they have left an incredibly broad interpretation over what an official or unofficial act can even be. And I quote, for example, the indictment alleges that the president asked the Arizona House Speaker to call the legislature into session to hold a hearing about election fraud claims. The president has no authority over state legislatures or their leadership, so it's hard to see how prosecuting him for crimes committed when dealing with the Arizona House Speaker would unconstitutionally intrude on executive power. The court, however, didn't rule on that. They remanded that issue to the lower courts. If they were going to remand something as clear as that to the lower courts, why the fuck did they make a ruling of absolute immunity on his conversation with the acting attorney general? Why didn't they remand that to the lower court as well?
Haven't you said 7 times during this conversation that the Supreme Court is not a court of first appeal?
Then why did they do it?
Then
Why did they do it for the attorney general?
No, hold on.
Hold on. To be
Why
clear,
did they do it
there
for
was
the
no.
attorney
Wait.
general?
There was
Because
no.
I can answer that question. I can answer that question. Because they're making a ruling on what is like the core official duties that are exclusive to the president of the United States. And therefore, if you put it down to the fucking lower courts, then they might make a ruling that they disagree with that is completely different from the way that they envision a vigorous executive.
If you want, sure, I understand what you're saying. If you wanted to follow Roberts off the fucking cliff here, which you're fully welcome to do, at the very least, Roberts should have had the integrity to say, here's our opinion. We're remanding all 4 of these things to the lower courts now for analysis.
Why would they remand the DOJ if they believe that that was a core executive function?
Because if I was the DOJ, you better believe I'm going to present that differently if I know that if I bring up this particular action, it's going to completely and totally fucking nuke my case. Of course he's going to find a different way to bring that up. But now it's
wait. This is the problem. This is the problem that I have with you guys.
Oh my God.
I earnestly believe that you are arguing passionately. I think you're arguing passionately from your perspectives. However,
to be clear, we've quoted this document like 20 times, but okay.
And so have I.
No, you haven't. I don't think you've quoted it a single time.
Guys, let's not get into this. Just say your point, Connor.
Are you fucking serious right now?
Okay, you're talking about who quoted
What am I
more.
incorrect? Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, what part of Robert's opinion have you cited to here to back any argument that you've had up?
I'm pretty sure.
He's going to say the whole thing.
I'm pretty sure I am the exact person that pointed out the 3 categories of the cases that were presented for different levels of remanding back to the fucking lower courts.
Dude,
so don't pretend for a fucking second that you and Pisco are the only people who have the capacity.
He said we've been quoting from it.
Words, you rude motherfucker.
He said we've been quoting from it.
Second.
So pointing to what the actual holdings are is not quoting from it. I understand. I agree. He just made it as an aside, and he said that you haven't quoted from it, and we shouldn't be bogged down in it. Say your point.
No, I'm gonna do this here. Sorry.
No?
Talking to the wife. I probably have to go blow stuff up in a minute.
Guys, we need to simplify this. We need to be friends. We need to be respectful.
We are all friends.
Connor, the basic problem here is what Steven told you, and what is the truth, is that the court did not remand the communications to the DOJ because as a categorical matter, they've said it would be intrusive to the powers and duties, the core responsibilities of the chief executive for us to interrogate his communication with the DOJ about investigations and prosecutions.
I know this. We've had a sick time.
Okay.
Where are you going?
Why isn't that also true? Isn't a core duty, for example, of the president to have communications with the Department of Justice about what measures to take in response to imminent terrorist threats? Is that a core duty?
Communications in order to take care of imminent terrorist threats are a core duty, yes.
Okay. So if the president of the United States says, we got an imminent terrorist threat here, folks.
Connor's going to say, not if he orders that thing, though. Not if he orders that thing. That's what Connor's about to say. I muted it. That's what Connor's about to say.
We need a bomber. That's a core. You just said, and it's imminent. So we already have the condition, right? The president has made this pro forma memo. It says, I have run an investigation, and it has been determined that Nancy Pelosi is a terrorist. She's actually not a citizen of the United States. We've made that factual finding, and it's an imminent threat. She's a terrorist. Let's kill her. You agree that even though it's all a sham, right? But the explanation, if it were true, they could use deadly force. Agreed, Connor?
Yes.
Okay. So now we have a situation where if all those facts were true, deadly force would be justified. And the president does it and actually kills Pelosi. You agree, absolute immunity, because every step they've made it's a fake investigation, but they've said we've done an investigation. They've talked about it. They've said it's imminent. They've met all the standards, and then they actually do it. You agree that's absolutely immune, right?
So hold on. I'm not being evasive. I'm trying to answer you directly. Yes. Okay. So there are so the reason why this is a infinitely stronger argument than the rape case is because you can point to an authorization from Congress that entitles the president to do this, which would be like AUMF 2001, right? And then maybe the
I don't agree, Connor. Wait, Connor. I just want to stop right there. I do not agree that statutes govern what the core executive powers of the president are. So I disagree with that. But because this example,
not core official.
But we're talking about core. It's by definition official because.
Well, and then also core would be a part of the commander in chief of the armed forces of the United States and the chief executive of the department.
Fine. But for this example,
you're saying fine, like it's exhausting to you, but I don't know why it would be exhausting to you.
It's exhausting to me because I think it's clear from this opinion that even if Congress made what's going on illegal, and even if Congress said there's another procedure for imminent threats and they didn't follow it, I think Stephen would agree with me that just the nature of the executive itself and the fact that he controls the people under the, like, it doesn't matter if he violates the procedure set up by Congress for dealing with imminent deadly threats. So I do not agree that it would have to fit with the AUMF. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think that whether or not it violates a congressional statute, you can't even determine that. So I don't agree that you need to have compliance, or at least pro forma compliance, with some existing statutory framework for it to be considered core executive. I think that's the opposite of what the holding is. But in this specific case, they've met and they've said that these are the steps you go through to use deadly force against imminent threats. And the president says, we made that determination. Oh yeah, we've done that fact finding. Oh yeah, she's not a citizen. And we know that because I determined it. I was told by my people. And therefore, kill her now. You agree. All those steps, pro formally, it's within the president's authority. Absolute immunity, right?
It's within the president's authority. He will probably get away with it with the way that the decision is.
Wait. I asked a specific question. Do you agree or do you not agree? Since it's a core executive authority, even though it's a sham, even though everything there is fake, he's absolutely immune for it.
Yes.
That's SEAL Team 6. Those are the hypos. That's what we're talking about. And that's a concession. And that's why we're not being histrionic. You just conceded that killing your political rivals could absolutely be core
I understand that you're gay. I understand that you're gay and you like to dance, but you don't need to dance right now. Thank you. Anyways, so the point is that what the main crux of the issue that we came in here for, the main thing that I cared about and that what you guys kind of danced around, no offense, is the fact that Dan, people like him, and you guys are kind of enabling a histrionic panic that the president now has absolute authority to walk down fucking Main Street, order anybody to be raped, murdered, killed, whatever. What I am telling you that I do not agree with, this is something that we have disagreed with multiple times in this conversation, is that he has to, based off of my reading of the documents, he has to have a constitutional or congressional authority to do something.
There's not agreed.
Hold on. Shut up. I've listened to you. You'll listen to me. There is no congressional and no constitutional duty that you can point to that will show that rape is a part of his purview.
Okay,
Not only that, not only that, but also criminal actions taken by the president, the more extreme and the more outside his scope they get, the more likely they are to have his presumptive immunity ripped away. That is something that we talked about during specifically with the vice president example.
Yep. Can I just say, actually, you know what? I fully support Counterpoints. And I think that what Counterpoints is saying is actually fucking based, okay? The problem is that what you're saying has nothing to do with this opinion. The idea that the president might perform an action of the executive, and that action and the order that he gave and the way that he did it, that actually doesn't comport with the core duties of the president, and it might even be criminally reviewable. I actually think that would be based. The what you're laying out for like raping, that's not faithfully executing laws passed by Congress. That's fucking insane. I agree with you. Robert says, I don't care. Even questioning that would impede his ability to be vigorous and energetic. So I agree with you in principle in terms of what you want. What you're talking about has no bearing on Robert's opinion.
Okay, I reject your false concession. I reject your condescension. I reject the fact that you think that I haven't read this thing. And on top of that,
I'm not saying any of that. I'm just
I would point people. I love you. No, I have to go blow my fingers off with fireworks in the next few minutes. So you're gonna have to listen to me, and then I'm gonna leave.
Wait, can I have one last thing after you're done?
You've gone and made him tired.
Okay. I am very tired. I do have a family. I do enjoy fireworks and meats. So I reject what the fuck you've said. And on top of that, I think that anybody who is even to the right of Bernie Sanders, reading page 6 of this decision, could see exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay. Connor, I love you, dog.
Uh-huh.
You're calling us all histrionic. About 3 minutes ago, you just conceded that a president who runs a completely and stated obviously fraudulent investigation where he makes up evidence and pretends that someone's an imminent threat and writes it down in a memo and then orders the killing of anybody in the United States on that basis would be absolutely immune. You just admitted that that would be core executive and it would be absolutely immune. So you're saying we're being histrionic for recognizing the powers that the president has.
Do you know why
and you
I'm saying you're
disagree
histrionic?
that he has.
Okay. Do you know why I'm saying that you're histrionic?
Because
It's because
it won't happen.
anybody that no, I think it could happen. I think Obama could absolutely kill.
So
some
why are we
random
being
fucking
histrionic?
Because I was about to tell you that. So the reason why I think you're being histrionic is because if we have a Caligula or a Nero seize power in the United States of America, then I think that his cabinet can invoke the 25th Amendment. I think he can be impeached. And on top of that, his authority, while serious and involving life and death, is not unlimited, which is one of the things that you guys have been asserting over and over again. That's kind of pissing me off.
Trump was impeached twice, and he's on track to win the next election. So I don't know what your point of any of that was.
You're a moderate, Connor. You're a moderate.
That has nothing to do with what I've said.
You're just like, oh well, we think.
Connor, you're a moderate right winger. You're a conservative, like a traditional
and
Republican.
I'm anti-Trump, by the way. Yes.
Wait, no. My point is, you're stumping and you're supporting Joe Biden. This is how bad you understand. You've done so much to help Joe Biden oppose, even though you probably hate 95% of Biden's policies because you think Trump, because you think Trump is such a threat. Trump is the Caligula,
or he's the Nero.
So for you to say we're being histrionic because someone that you have made you abandon a lot of your policy positions on principle related to structure and institutions, because we've just seen this on a power you agree that this is giving him. How can we be histrionic if it's made you change your entire political advocacy? It's made you support progressive victory. You're not a progressive, Connor.
You guys are going outside of the scope of the conversation. So I'll finish my point, and then I'm going to go blow my fingers off with fireworks because that's my God-given right as an American. Okay?
Yeah.
His authority, hold on. I assert, you don't have to agree with me, I assert that his authority is not unlimited, that it is sourced from the Constitution, it is sourced from the Congress, and there are other avenues with which to check his power. And I'm not going to go into the details of that because I know I would just bore you. So anyways, Stephen,
wait a minute.
I'm saying goodbye. What?
He's gone. He left. My question to you is a couple of things. Number one, I think the impeachment question is really important because you cited that as an example of a check on the president earlier.
He's not gone. I see him, you son of a bitch. Go ahead.
He's not in his chair unless I'm missing something.
Okay, I don't care.
Anyway,
Continue.
So anyway, given that Trump was not successfully convicted by the very Congress whom he sent a riotous mob to murder, how can you trust that Republicans would hold him in check, or a Republican cabinet that he says he is specifically picking in his second term for his loyalty? There will not be a Bill Barr. There will not be an Elaine Chao. There will be just Trump loyalists. That's my first question. And then my second question is, why didn't Chief Justice Roberts address these hysterical hypotheticals, right? If they were so hysterical and if he so clearly enshrined protections in his ruling against the president assassinating somebody or staging a coup, why didn't he fucking address them?
Okay, Josiah, I love you, but you're 2 hours late. I'm gonna, if you want to have a Wick Pisco Josiah SCOTUS roundtable sometime within the next 7 days, I'm very happy to do so. We can all legislate this again and all take psychic damage. But for now, I need to go do fireworks and meat. Right. So, anyways, Pisco, I still love you. You're a pain in my fucking ball sack. Josiah, I love you more than everybody else because we haven't fought yet. Dan, you're a cunt, but I respect you ish. And Destiny, I love you too, but go fuck yourself.
I love you, babe.
All right, bye.
That was insane.
I told you guys not to go with that level of hypothetical, and you laughed at me and yelled at me.
You're right.
Well, it doesn't matter about the hypotheticals. He's not right because even the real life examples we couldn't agree on. Couldn't agree on literally.
No, because he is right because as soon as I gave him the terrorist example, he agreed that it was right.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. He followed you to the very end, but then he still disagreed with the application of SEAL Team 6.
Well, he's just coping, but he no, he didn't. He said SEAL Team 6 is okay.
Well, then why did he say you guys are just being histrionic at the end?
I don't know because he's coping. Didn't you hear him grant the hypothetical?
I thought he was like, don't do this or whatever after the thing. I don't even remember that argument right in my brain.
I think Dan was right.
You know, what can you say? Being right, it's a blessing and a curse. You know, especially when you're early and everyone thinks you're wrong. That's the worst.
I totally respect that you're one of the preeminent debate lords in the world.
Well, you don't have to.
This is not a good showing. This is not a good showing because you're letting him slip by you and letting him drag you to the vice president.
I wasn't talking.
Not you, Dan. No, I'm saying Steven.
Oh yeah.
Steven
is me? I wasn't there having a hardcore like nail him, crucify him to the fucking wall debate thing. I just wanted to walk him through the logic of the case. That's all I was going.
No, you were letting him walk you because anything he wanted to talk about, and this is I respect you. Okay. But you're not on message. You're not on message.
I don't care. Okay.
You don't care about what?
Ooh, he's mad about right
now. No, Connor came in, who's not like a fucking lawyer, and I just wanted to walk him through and walk with him through on some of the implications of some of the court stuff. I'm not here like trying to get out like hardcore fucking concessions from Connor points or whatever. Like if I have a conversation with Tim Pool and I go through this and I don't like pull like hardcore concessions, you can be critical. But for Connor, no, I just wanted to come in. I already have no fucking conservatives in here at all to talk to me anymore. So no, I'm not looking to crucify Connor and everything.
Isco, you got to learn to just like turn it down sometimes, dog.
Hey, to be fair, that guy was like he was being a fucking cunt as well.
He was being unhinged as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. After you guys started,
no,
you riled him up.
You have to go back and look, but I believe that he was the first stone thrower in a glass house.
I totally believe that. He called Dan a Jew.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say it. I think that equal rights for equal lefts. He was getting very frisky. It is what it is. At the end of the day,
he had a crying baby in his arms. Give him a
that makes it
worse. Who told him to have a baby while he's saying these slurs?
That makes it worse, not better. That's really at the end of the day. But yeah, I don't know, man. Hypotheticals, kryptonite. But give me this. That's John Zerka, a less smart John Zerka, debating flat Earth, never giving an inch on anything ever. Doesn't matter. Thinks that you're going to get an inch. You get him all the way. He gives the inch, and you're like, okay, and this is the inch, and he's like, oh, but that doesn't count. Literally the same thing.
Does Zerka do that last part?
Yeah, except Zerka is so smart. He makes you go off on another subject.
Zerka so smart?
Hold on. I don't agree that Counterpoints is a fucking retard and was missing on every single point. I think there are a couple of like key things that he's like that aren't clicking with him or that he disagrees with, but he's not like uniquely stupid or something. There's a lot of people that are having this disagreement.
I think he's just an ideologue that will never give an inch on anything.
It's possible that he's got like a political bend, maybe. Sure, that's possible. Sure, but that's not. But Zerka is a different.
Are you saying that because like Zerka has beat Destiny Debate? Like why would you?
No, Zerka is just a very effective. Like if you try to, they're both like,
slippery.
Yeah, they're both eels. Like if you try, the harder you try to grab, the more they fucking slip out of your hand. You could present them with the most obvious facts. You're like, okay, listen, here's a hypothetical. You hit your hammer with a hand. Or sorry, you hit your hand with a hammer. You hit your hand with a hammer. It hurts, right? And then instead of saying yes, they'll be like, well, it depends. Is it a toy hammer? Is it a metal hammer? How hard am I swinging it? Right? If I just do it a little bit, it's not going to hurt. And why would I do that in the first place? Like, who's just going out there and hitting their hand with a hammer? That doesn't even make sense. And if you did that, I'm pretty sure there would be someone around you to stop you from doing that in the first place. So it just has no bearing also. And it's also even not illegal to do that if you want to. So how much it hurts is really based around your own pain threshold and all that. It's just like, what are we doing here?
I'm going to be honest. I didn't really follow that, Dan, but
you didn't follow that? That was like the easiest thing to follow ever. Or you just
talk about your hands a bunch and hammers and it might hurt. I don't know what you just said.
I can slow it down for you if I want. I thought you're more on this level, Pisco. You're disappointing me right now.
Sorry. Yeah. Can you say it again?
No. You
I didn't know.
You can rewatch the VOD and you'll get it. Okay. There was one misspeak. That's fine. That was in there in the beginning, but the rest of it stood true. Okay.
Yeah. I think that I was frustrated because I felt that he was doing things intentionally to delay stuff. So for example, Stephen would ask him a question about core executive power and he'd be like, can I get some rope, please? Can I get some rope? And he just starts talking about like you don't think these judges are Machiavellian, mustache twirling, and like yap, just yapping. It's a bunch of yappers. and that kind of.
I did, Mr. Josiah there. I did see you in chat saying some things like,
somebody asked Destiny, can you read page 6, section 3, and tell me how them saying, as the government sees it, however, Trump can point to no plausible source of authority enabling the president to take such actions, and saying the district court can determine whether or not these actions are official or unofficial, doesn't show they can still be held liable for this? The ruling of the court wasn't that he can't be held liable for anything. It's that they didn't take a clear stance on saying there are some things that he absolutely didn't have immunity for. Everything that the court ruled on directly was either given presumptive immunity or absolute immunity. That's the point of what I was saying.
Change the system to change the system because he knows Republicans have fucked the system so much. It's just about finding what changes he'd agree to.
oh, sorry, Josiah. Destiny muted, and he didn't hear what you said when you were talking to him for the last 45 seconds.
Was Josiah talking to me?
Yeah, he was.
Yes.
You're kind of being a little bit of a prick.
Yeah, you asshole.
Maybe you shouldn't do that. To try and make yourself
okay,
look
well, we've been
better
talking
in
about this for
chat.
3 fucking hours, and I've made
Josiah.
zero
I was
fucking
here
progress
for
on
5
shit.
minutes. I was here for 5 minutes.
No, I understand. It's not your fault. It's their fault. Okay, what were you saying,
No,
Josiah?
he doesn't.
Sorry. Say it again.
Don't tell him again. Josiah, don't tell him again. He doesn't
Tell me again,
appreciate
Josiah.
you.
What were you saying?
You are getting there. He is getting to the point where he's willing to change the system. That's why he bought the Alien, and he's going to build an AR-15. He's getting there.
No, make him feel bad, Josiah. Give him nothing. Say, you know what? I'm not going to tell you now.
Okay, sorry. On Trump's view, the alleged conduct qualifies as official because it was undertaken to ensure the integrity and proper administration of the federal election. As the government sees it, however, Trump can point to no plausible source of authority enabling the president to take such actions, determining whose characterization may be correct, and with respect to which conduct requires a fact-specific analysis of the indictment's extensive and interrelated allegations. The court accordingly remands to the district court to determine in the first instance whether Trump's conduct in this area qualifies as official or unofficial. So this is what the district court has to do this. They've got to figure out whether it's official, and then once it's official, they've got to figure out if they can overcome the presumptive immunity. That's what's still remanded. Yeah, okay.
Okay, potentially to make use of an ability that we never have. Yeah. And I feel like they're just going to be limp-dicked, limp-wristed Democrats and do nothing with it.
Sorry, you're really saying he has the bright energy?
Inroads that they've made with conservative judges. Like the entirety of the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society exists to promulgate this plan long term, and you don't see people in the Democratic Party willing to push those kinds.
I'm condemning esports Batman, Dan, and Josiah. If you guys are really serious about
wait, Josiah, what do you
wait,
hold on, let him talk. Josiah, what do you think the Democrats should do as far as being ruthless?
So for me, obviously this is contingent, I think, on number one, Biden has to get reelected. We have to retake the House, and we have to keep the Senate. But I think Supreme Court reform has to be done. Here's the thing. We can do... Right now, the Supreme Court of the United States is effectively the most powerful branch. They've set themselves up this way. Yep. It's an unearned power. It's ahistorical. People want to talk about textualism and, the originalism. The Founding Fathers intended, they were explicit about this. The Supreme Court was to be the weakest branch. Now, I love peace.
So if the district court deems it unofficial, Trump can still have presumptive or absolute? No, if they can rule that something was unofficial, then he has no immunity. But it's going to be very, very, very hard to argue that the action a president has taken is unofficial.
Congress. And right now, it's the final boss of democracy. They get to strike down executive orders. They get to strike down federal statutes.
Dan wants to coup the court. He's not.
I said, wait a minute. I said I didn't agree with just like rounding up Republicans.
With his energy, but don't you agree? I also agree with some of these reforms, but why do you agree with his energy? His energy is like break the law.
The energy is be ruthless. I don't think we have to take it to sequester Republicans, and I don't even know how serious he was about that. I think the point is, though, use your powers at your disposal aggressively. Biden came out and gave a 5-minute speech in which he's like, yeah, listen, shit's fucked. The president is effectively a king now.
Just vote harder.
And it's vote
you guys
harder.
are sick. You guys are about power politics then, because what you're saying is I want President Biden to use this power. What Biden did was actually one of the most honorable things a president could do, which is to look this power in the face and say, of course I'm not going to abuse it. And what you guys wanted him to do is, I don't know, be more ruthless with absolute criminal immunity?
No. So to be clear, I am not. When I made the comment about sequesters, my plan on the justices, I'm clearly being facetious. I'm not advocating.
No, but you guys are saying that his statement is weak because
it is weak, Pisco. It is weak. Instead, what he should say is he should have been at least more forceful in his rhetoric, folks.
Okay, fine.
This is setting up for the next Republican president, be it Trump or otherwise, to dismantle our democracy. This is an existential threat, and we should be looking at Supreme Court reform. The American people, I have seen the polls. I am well aware. 70% of you think that this is insane. That the Supreme
he has
Court
to
has
win an election,
Wait a minute. Yes, and do you think that campaigning on Supreme Court reform, in the aftermath of the Supreme Court making an historically unpopular decision as the culmination of a series of historically unpopular decisions, might not be good campaign fodder?
I think
it
that
is.
Biden has enough problems without people accusing him of trying to pack the court.
My worry, to be clear, isn't so much in the long term of the court having too much power. It's going to be what happens when you don't have an executive that's willing to follow through with the court. Because right now, the executive power grab, or the court's power grab, is predicated on the executive working with it. My concern is going to come to a head where the court has, on paper or theoretically all this power, and then the executive just says, I'm not enforcing the court's opinion, which has always been kind of an underlying concern. Because what happens then, right? The Supreme Court can sit there and say, oh, the executive can't do this, or the government is acting improperly, or this law is unconstitutional. And the executive can go, I don't give a shit. I'm going to still continue to enforce this law.
Yeah, that's not acquiescence.
And so on paper, the court goes from being the strongest to the weakest overnight. I think really what it comes down to is the collaboration between the executive and the judiciary to try and subvert the democracy by disempowering
right now,
the legislature.
The Supreme Court justices, by themselves, did something that no one voted on or gave approval on. They just went fucking crazy. They're like the president's king now, basically.
Yes.
They did that by themselves. Okay, that's not like democratic or anything. That's just them going nuts. And if that is true, which I believe it is, I believe that they've said that the president can do whatever he wants and can't be prosecuted for it. I think that Biden should do something, threaten something, anything,
Threaten
do some crazy shit to flip the odds, okay, which are currently against him, because I do believe that if Trump gets in, as it's written right now, it's the end of America.
So 80% of the country, 80% of the country, or something approaching that, maybe 70, think Biden is mentally unfit to be president, and you think a way to assuage those fears is for him to like start making accusations and say, I might use this power. Like, really, is that your strategy for winning?
Yeah, do it.
I think my strategy for winning would be for Biden to choose a new VP, which would be more tolerable and popular, with the idea that Biden would step down after the election, and using his acts right now, basically go out, essentially being like, I can take the heat. He can be the Dark Knight. He can do the crazy criminal shit because he's going to be stepping down after election day to his VP. So he can go in there, be the Dark Knight, sequester the Republicans, get new Supreme Court reform in there.
Because you know how stupid it is. You're laughing in the middle.
I'm laughing, but it's the most important thing that Joe Biden should be focused on right now, more than anything else, is finding a way to solve this problem, because it's the end of America otherwise. I don't. You know, esports Batman, you have a problem, and that problem is you don't listen to anything anyone says. You just wait for your turn to talk and say what you think. Okay, just chill. Okay. Hold on. Okay.
Oh my God!
You have long pauses between your sentences, so it's hard.
I think when I speak, I try. Listen, Josiah. Okay, the big YouTuber in the room here.
No, that'd be Steven.
what can be done whatsoever? The most important critical thing there is right now is to stop this king for a life shit from staying law.
That's where I say I agree in terms of your energy, because I think the Supreme Court has to be reformed. I think at this point in particular, where they have set themselves up as the final boss of democracy, the only body which can potentially rein in, at least in theory, a president with this kind of power is the court. They're the ones who would determine what is an official act and what isn't, and all these things.
It's a MAGA Congress. It's MAGA House. You're not going to get anything through right now. So Biden talking about it is only possibly going to hurt him in the election. No one's going to be like,
listen, I tell you what, and maybe Dan won't make this concession, but I will. When you point out that 80% of the electorate thinks that Biden lacks the mental fitness to be president, and therefore him saying that he's going to wield these newfound powers, or rather this unfettered authority, fair enough, I'll take it. But what I am telling you is, if by God, by some fucking miracle, we win the White House, we retake the House. By the way, that's the most likely thing. We're probably going to lose the White House and probably lose the Senate. But if by some miracle we get a trifecta, do you agree that a major priority for Democrats, if we get the trifecta, is to rein in this court? Or
100%. That's been my argument for years.
Good. Then we agree. Then all we disagree is about how to do that. What we all agree on, with the possible exception of Stephen, is that we can't just go, oh, ho-hum, we just have to win elections in perpetuity and hope that a Republican, a bad faith Republican, doesn't wield the awesome powers of the executive branch.
I've been in favor of expanding the court for a while.
Good.
It was one of my first conversations ever with Stephen. I think we were discussing this like literally 4 years ago. That was one of our first discussions.
Then on the fundamentals, at least three of us, I don't know again about Batman and Stephen, we agree. Whatever the tactic is, we have to win and we have to change this court.
Biden should hold a press conference and be like, I might do something with this power. Like, I don't
maybe because Dan thinks that's the best way to affect the change. If we tell, but I don't think he cares as long as the court is changed at the end of this to prevent abuse of this sort of power.
Yeah, I mean, unironically, at the end of the day, I think that if Biden seemed to make the weakest non-statements whatsoever about this, I feel like he could have put the fear of fucking God into the Supreme Court justices before they came back with this, saying, man, I really hope they make me a king. That would be cool.
Yeah, you want him to be like the Hokage, but he can't right now, because if he does, he has no leverage. He's being pressured by like 60% of his party to drop the fuck out. This is not a good time for him to...
That's why I'm suggesting he does.
He has no leverage.
He becomes the Dark Knight.
Becoming the Dark Knight isn't an answer to every question about your policy.
Or Pisco, what about this? Okay, fair, again, I did make that concession, but I'm actually half tempted to withdraw it now. What about the alternative? Okay, which is the Supreme Court's historically unpopular, particularly after Dobbs. This decision is pissing everybody off except like a right-wing fringe. Do you think there's potential for Biden to galvanize his support if he says, by the way, if you reelect me, we're going to fuck this court up. We are going to reshuffle things. We're going to pack it. We're going to put binding code, whatever it is. Whatever the particular reforms are. But basically,
that's a great example. That I love that.
That's a great way to lose the election.
I think that's a great way. If Biden came out, we're going to do it at like 10 a.m. because he's going to be really up and ready to go at that time. At 10 a.m. he comes out. My fellow Americans, it's gone too far. If you reelect me, we're fucking redoing the Supreme Court. I shouldn't be a king. Trump shouldn't be a king. We're redoing this. That's priority number one. Get me in here, and I'll get them out.
Do you understand the level
of... He drops the fucking mic on the ground when he says that after saying Biden out.
I assume you've been living on a rock or on vacation. Do you understand the level of crisis the Democratic Party is right now? We have never seen anything like this. And your solution for Biden is in the time when sitting members of Congress are saying he is too mentally unfit to run for Congress. Do we have a sitting member of Congress?
You know what you remind me of, what you're saying right now? It reminds me of everyone saying, oh my God, the Republicans are in chaos. Trump's doing everything crazy. He's not being nice like Romney. Oh my God, it's over the Republicans. It's done. It's done. You know what? You could just be wrong. And it could be that Biden could literally become Dark Biden and actually fucking win as a result of it and appeal to people. All right? That could be what could happen also. But instead you're like, no, it's just an old man. Dan, you're going to ruin everything. It's already fucked.
So here's an idea. If you wanted to blow up this decision real quick, and if you were Biden, you could do like Dan said, which is a good idea. And I think that's really what he should have said the other day when he came out and did his speech. But there's another way of doing this, which is the day after the election, if he is or if a Democrat is reelected, give full amnesty and pardon everybody who is undocumented in this country, which the president could do.
Problem, esports Batman.
No.
This is, immigration is not a criminal matter. What? I don't know how many.
It's not a criminal matter. The point is, you're going to test the boundaries of the opinion to watch everybody freak the fuck out, right? That's the point.
Would that be? Hang on. No.
Yes.
Just no.
It would work.
Pardoning people for crimes is itself not a crime, and Congress hasn't tried to make it a crime.
Pisco, what is wrong with you? You know Biden's fucking cooked right now, right? Completely cooked. And what I'm suggesting is him to try
to make it much worse.
I don't think it can get much worse. What I'm trying to make him seem is like, you know what? I was having a rough day, but I'm fucking back.
Hang on. You don't think it could get much worse, right, Dan? So you agree that he should step down?
No, I think he should have a sick ass VP and go fucking Dark Biden.
If it can't get much worse, why wouldn't you be in favor of trying something new?
I just said this. What I am suggesting is he do something new.
I know, but I'm asking you a question. Like, if he can't get worse, much worse.
Like he can
don't
obviously
you
get.
think that
Obviously, he
coming-
can get worse. He can shit himself on stage and be like, "Oh, where am I?"
He can get
Right?
worse. He can
Yes.
start talking like a dictator and making sure that he gets 20%.
Why do you
of the
think? Hey, hold on. People like dictators. You might be wrong on that front. Trump was talking like a dictator, and people thought that he was going to get fucking raped as a result of that in the election and the
different
primary.
bases. Like,
Oh, I'm
our
sorry.
party.
I didn't know that. Yeah, they're right. There's never been a far left dictator. My bad, Pisco.
Dude,
you go ahead.
dude,
it's
I'm
only
talking
the right. It's only the
I
right that
never
has
said
dictators.
there's never been a left-wing dictator. I'm saying
Okay, so
in
you're
this-
saying, wait a minute, you're saying people on the left sometimes like authoritative people as well?
yes, people on the left sometimes like authoritarian people.
Oh my
But in
God!
this
So maybe that's
country,
a strategy that could work here.
people on the left also sometimes like anarchy. People on the left also sometimes like deviant sexual shit. That doesn't mean that Biden should come out and be a deviant sexual person.
That you are taking such a huge leap off of what I'm using as a hypothetical, saying that people in general do like and do vote for authoritative people, and you're saying, oh, that's only for the right. I'm saying that's not the
I
case.
never said it's only for the right.
Okay,
You just
so you're
invented that.
so then what I'm saying is I think that Biden should go that direction right now, saying, you know what? Fuck it. They gave me this power. I'm going to use it. I'm going to make this country great, and then I'm going to destroy it. So yeah, I do think he should do that. And I'm not trolling. I'm not being wild. And I think it is probably one of the only good strategies left to him, as well as picking a fucking sick-ass VP to come in there and basically make it think like this guy, you know what? He's fucking putting on his last pair of pants, the good one, and he's going to get some shit done.
It's
Yeah.
important to readdress it in light of something that would be exactly the nightmare scenario that they've been talking about Biden for 4 years, because you wouldn't be able to have the right sit there and take something like that without there being an absolute uproar to the Supreme Court saying
You're even worse, esports. Can I just say? I mean, I expect this from Dan, and you know what? Frankly,
you
now I
expect
expect it from
what?
you
You
because
expect what from me? Reality?
unhinged fucking
It's not
rambling.
unhinged. You are the exact guy that would be like, man, Trump has no shot. He's gonna fucking, he's gone. There's no shot
I
he's gonna
never
make it in the
said
election.
that.
You would be that guy there because you'd be like, oh my God, he's so outside the norms. Man, you know who's gonna take it?
I never
Mitt
said that.
Romney. Mitt Romney.
I never said that in
Premium
2016
guy.
either.
Oh, John McCain. He's going all the way, guaranteed. That's you.
Those were my Nate Silver days when I was looking at his forecast and saw that he had like a 20-something% chance. And I was like, oh, I was very much in fear. And I publicly was posting, everyone vote for Hillary. So I 100% never said that he could never win. You're just like tied to this idea because you think it's neat. And now that
I
we've
don't
challenged
think that
you
it's
on
neat.
it,
I
you
think
think
that
it's
it's-
neat. You think it's
No.
neat.
I think it's a. There are other strategies for Biden to take, but I think this is one of the strategies that can be effective.
Is it the most neat strategy there is?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know every strategy that Biden is planning right now to do it.
But it's
Obviously,
the neatest that you can think of.
Well, I'm saying specifically, no, it would probably never happen. He would probably never go and
But it would
sequester
be a good
Republicans.
idea. It would be a
would
neat
he?
idea.
Would he come out and do a speech about how that's something that Trump can do, and it's something he can do today, and how he's thinking about how maybe there's some Supreme Court, like maybe that's something we might do, a crazy dark speech about where America could go tomorrow.
You
Yeah,
want him to give a Hitler speech.
about where things could go. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Didn't he already do
You know-
that when he did
No,
Wait a
he's
minute,
never
yeah,
done
well,
anything like that.
Pisco,
Okay.
I think I do think you provide some good pushback here, but how is that a Hitler speech? Hitler was giving that speech talking about wanting the
No,
acquisition of executive power. Not
No,
this.
Wait, can I ask an
literally-
ultra quick
okay,
question?
that's
Ultra quick
not
question.
true.
The syllabus for the Supreme Court decisions, are those written by the majority opinion writer, or is that written by like a staffer?
They're probably written by clerks, and they're
Clerks.
not part of the controlling opinion.
Okay,
so,
just
so
checking.
That's
Okay,
why
okay, gotcha.
I tell you not to start with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Hitler's justification for taking power, it's never going to be based like, oh, I'll never give this back, or whatever, all that shit. He is ostensibly using the democracy against itself and everything, not everything, but a lot of things going through quote unquote democratic institutional channels. Right? He was appointed by President Hindenburg. There's a passed an enabling act, and all those things are done.
I think you've got it backwards. Unless I misunderstood Dan, and Dan can correct me. I thought he said that Biden should give a speech about the parade of horribles that Trump could do. Trump could do X, Y, and Z. Trump could do this. Trump could do
any
I also think that he could go in there and say, you know what, Republicans who are all up in arms about this, how would you feel if tomorrow I went and I had 20% of your judges sequestered?
Have you guys ever seen? There's a really good movie. It's called Star Wars Episode 2: Attack of the Clones.
You're being a little bit not answering this.
Have you ever seen Star Wars Episode 2: Attack of the Clones?
Do you want to just not answer this? I have seen the movie, but
okay.
Go ahead.
The movie Star Wars 2: Attack of the Clones, there is this character who's kind of behind the scenes and is a politician. His name's Sheev. His name's Sheev Palpatine, and he
greatest movie villain.
You know, he's kind of in control of things. He's running things, and his reason and rationale for getting a grand army of the Republic and for getting massive executive authority is to fight against the dangers of something destroying the Republic. Every dictator in history says that there's some external existential threat, and that's why I need my power now.
Wait a minute.
Wait
a minute.
Sorry, go ahead, Josiah. You're going to say what I'm going to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what is the critical difference here, Pisco, besides the fact that one's a movie and the other one isn't? Biden doesn't want these powers. He
wants to get rid of them.
These
He
powers.
wants to throw them in the fire.
Said. That's what Sheev said, that he didn't want the power. He'll give it back as soon as the crisis is over.
But there's an underlying fact of the matter, prick, where he actually did want those powers.
Biden didn't cause this in the first place.
You guys are
Biden spoke out about
you guys are fascist Biden supporters.
You know what you are? You're someone who's willing to just let democracy die versus possibly pressing a button to do a little bit of a cheat code and keep it up. No.
I'm not even saying press the button. I don't know how
threaten the button.
When Dan says
pussy, Dan, and get it over with.
When Dan says that Biden could give a speech about what could be done with these powers in the hands of a less responsible person, powers that he did not ask for, powers that he is openly criticizing the court for giving him, how does that make us fascist?
No, you guys are fascist Biden supporters.
He can't picture the speech. That's the problem. Let me be Biden. Stop. I'm going to be Biden. My fellow
That'll be
Americans,
easy for you because you always fuck up your words.
My fellow Americans, I come to you today with a newfound power granted to me by the Supreme Court. With this power, I have the ability to permanently and immediately detain President Trump, all of the people that supported him, anyone who has gone against me. Unlimited, absolute power. I will immediately get rid of all people in the Senate that oppose me, all of the House that oppose me. I'll move forward with all of my plans. We will have 1 million illegal immigrants coming in a day. That's the power that the Supreme Court just gave. Do you want me to have that? I don't want to have it. What is going on with the Supreme Court? What has happened to our country? Like, this is the type of shit that needs to happen, by the way.
Anderson Cooper would eat that up. The president just delivered a speech today where he...
Are you going to not talk? Stop. That's what we're saying we want to have happen, okay? We want him...
And I guess Josiah and esports are on board.
I could see a speech in which Biden lays out, listen, these are the implications of this recent Supreme Court ruling that make it profoundly dangerous moving forward. I gave a speech however many days ago, it was 5 minutes, but I felt like we need to get into specifics of what a president could do with these powers, and that's why it's so wildly dangerous. This was the wrong ruling. We have to make changes to reverse course. No person, no president, Democrat, Republican, myself, Trump, anybody should be entitled to this sort of unfettered, I don't know, authority or discretion or whatever you want to call it. I don't think that's fascist. You don't even have to include a threat in there. I could see a speech laying out the parade of horribles. And I think that could potentially be worthwhile. I also think
saying I have those powers today, and I choose not to use them. Will someone else? I don't know. Huge fucking W at that type of shit. So 1984 incoming type shit.
But most importantly, with respect, Pisco, and I don't know if you're memeing or not, there's nothing about that that makes anybody in this room, particularly me, fascist, because I don't want Biden to have this power. Biden doesn't want to have this power.
I don't want him to have it either.
Nobody asked for Biden to have this
Wait.
power.
Just be clear. Dan wants him to use the power.
No, I think I'm okay with him.
At the very minimum,
threatening it.
threatening the power. I think threatening to use fascist power and to use dictatorial power is itself a use of dictatorial power.
Fine, take the threat. Fine, take the threats
Okay.
aside. What about just laying out the parade of horribles that a Republican president?
Then now we're just talking about like he should have made a better optical speech. Okay, but we're not talking about like he's too much of a pussy. We're just saying like, okay, everyone is freaking out in his room and they don't have time to write speeches because more than 80% of the country thinks he's mentally infirm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he could have been more forceful in his rebuke of it, and I think that no matter what, aggressive Supreme Court reform has to be a priority of the Democratic trifecta. And again, I think he laid out a pretty compelling case why a guy who is, in such low approval and whom the vast majority of the country think is cognitively impaired should be very careful about what he says. But the system has to change, and I think that's one thing we all agree on. Again, with the possible exception of Stephen. I don't know where he falls on this.
I think Stephen has stopped considering what Dan is talking about, and I'm close to that position because I just think that
just to be clear, what I'm saying is it's not like so far fetched that someone wouldn't consider it or anything. Like the idea that like Biden could come out there and give a speech about the dangers of what's coming and use examples of what he could do today but doesn't. And that's why it's crazy that it's this way.
So much from your original position. Before you were like, literally, he should be.
Let me be clear. I think he should start with this. Okay, I'll go further. Absolutely, I'll go further with this. I don't think he should start with seizing Congress and everything on laws. No, I don't. That would be insane. He should, of course, start with a speech and try to get to that point as much as he can. But there can be no world where Trump takes office and this ruling is still in effect. Okay, so whatever it takes. So whatever it takes, escalating use of force.
Okay, yeah. I'll ask you a very simple question then, Dan. Mm-hmm. Would you be in favor of the Democrats actually voter fraud in the election?
Would I be in favor of Democrats voter fraud?
Engaging in voter fraud specifically.
I would never. I think this is illegal to say yes to, so I don't think I want to. I'm not going to say yes to that. I mean, the will of the people should. If the people want to have a dictator, and also that's a rapidly different thing. Okay,
whatever. Do you support?
No, I don't. The majority of the people should get what they want, even if they're retarded.
Why do you support this other thing?
I speak for the majority of the Democrats. I think.
Right. That's in favor of voter fraud.
Because if there's more people that want to have the dictator, that's how we decide.
No, but you just said that I will do.
Are you not understanding what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm
saying that as Democrats should do everything they can legally within their power to be the most effective Democrat that they can. But if the election comes and people do not want Democrats anymore.
Seizing members of Congress for no reason isn't legal. You just don't have a criminal punishment for it. It doesn't become legal.
Well, I mean, that depends. It really depends on the subtext of it, right? Because you could have Biden saying, listen, these guys are subverting democracy, and I believe that they're terrorists, and my Justice Department agrees with me. Now it's legal.
So why wouldn't you be in favor of a little voter fraud just to stop this dictator from coming to power, and then we'll never do it again?
I just explained to you why.
Because you think that if the people want a dictator, they should have it.
Yeah.
Why aren't you not in favor of everything being as it is and not subverting the will of the people by seizing their Congress and seizing the will of the people?
You're trying to like cook me here, but you're doing such a bad job. I've explained this to you. If the majority of people want to have a dictator, fuck it, so be it. That's it. But now, the majority of the people put Biden in charge. And that means they want Biden to be the most effective that he can be and do the best job that he can do. And in my eyes, he should do as much as he can because that's what we elected him to do. Okay? So that's what I can. But that doesn't mean...
If you knew that seizing Donald Trump, the person Donald Trump, would, in essence, end the election and make Biden in charge, would you be for that? No voter fraud.
Seizing Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Putting him a better question is.
I mean, that's a better question. I asked that question.
no, a better question is, would I be okay with Biden's like secret FBI police putting child porn on Trump's computer and then having it show up? And then
I don't know
like,
why that's
also
a
having,
better question, but fine.
because it would
Well,
like immediately completely cost him the election, get him arrested,
Okay.
have him in jail. That's the end of him right
would
there.
you give for that?
If it came down to the wire at the end,
Yeah.
I have to think on that. That's a tough one. That's getting towards the end. I think I might be in
What
favor
are we
of that at the
talking
end.
about? What are we
Yeah.
talking about?
We're talking about not having a dictatorship, right?
Okay, then why wouldn't you be okay with a little voter fraud?
Because I guess that's where you draw the line.
Wait a
Draw
minute. Pisco, with
You
much
just can't
love,
say
buddy.
it, but the same, yeah.
Why don't you answer some of these questions too? Because
Yeah.
you and I have talked about, you think Donald Trump's an existential threat to this republic. You think the Supreme Court decision spells potential doom for our democracy. So let me ask you. I mean, this
Yeah.
goes back to what Stephen said about January 6th, which is that if these people really believed that their democracy is being stolen from them, it justifies an insurrection, right? If you thought that the election was stolen from you and that there was no real recourse to stop it, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So I know you're comfortable posing the questions, but answer it. If what
Yeah,
you say is true,
If I knew for a fact that the country would end and like it would be a reign of tyranny, I can't give you the exact level of harm that would be required to engage in that kind of thing. Like I'm just mean because that's just like morality, right? Like I can't give you the exact line where killing an innocent is going to be the harm, whatever. I can't do that trade-off right now as we speak, and I can't won't do it with voter fraud. I understand and acknowledge that in the ethical hypotheticals people can come up with, you can come up with some hypotheticals where, if you don't do voter fraud, then the entire country gets nuked. And I'm not going to be a deontologist on voter fraud. All I'm saying is in the current situation there is uncertainty, right? If Trump gets elected another term, I'm not going to say that the nation is gone. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to fight for the nation using legal things, all right, and totally legal, nonviolent ways. I'm going to do my best to stand up to what I expect are going to be gross abuses. I'm not going to give up on the administration or the fact that we're going to have elections. I'm going to advocate, right? So the presence of that uncertainty means that I don't see, even Dan's scenario as a good situation. I don't think that we should be doing that, planting child pornography on Donald Trump's computer so he gets arrested. I think that's
sure. Well, because I think I think you don't have to commit voter fraud to defeat Donald Trump. If Democrats turn up and vote, we win. There are more people in the Democratic coalition than there are certainly in the MAGA Republican coalition. So I don't think you have to take it to that point. You can also reverse a lot of the damage that the Supreme Court has done with this decision and other decisions. If once Democrats are in power, they wield that power to change the
right
system.
now he would be willing to do certain things.
Wait, what? Say that again?
Dan is saying right now he'd be willing to do certain things.
I said that I felt like there should be a scale of starting first off with a speech and then going. I mean, we have months, was it November or whatever, until election? So we have time, but I would start with a speech right now and see how that starts changing things. See if the most important issue that there is right now is the president being king. Trump is probably the worst person in the world to have that power. So I would do everything I could to get the decision reversed. That's more important. I'll put it this way. You see, this is why I don't care so much about Trump. I care about the Supreme Court decision. If the Supreme Court decision gets reversed and Trump becomes president, not really a big deal to me anymore, essentially.
Okay.
The king shit is the issue. That's the problem. That's why when you're saying, will I do voter fraud? Will I do all this other shit? It all depends so much completely on this one Supreme Court ruling now. That
And
one
now-
man is.
Now I actually go ahead.
I was going to say, well, wait a minute. I definitely want to hear what you have to say because I thought now that it seems like we are closer to a consensus.
I'm not closer.
It sounds like
I was
that
about to
you're
say
still
something.
pretty far from it. I was just going to say, I think it would be interesting to talk to Stephen very calmly about what he would be willing to entertain in terms of systemic change.
Here's
Here's
a quick thing. So first, I'm not interested in any of the applied particulars. I actually don't give a fuck. Okay, I'd rather kill myself than have that conversation. Principally, here is the general maxim. Okay, that I subscribe to. All right. Personally, I believe that democracies are really cool and awesome forms of government. They are, I think, the most effective way at expressing the widest view of society while still protecting the majority of people in society, protecting their rights, protecting their ability to live free and unbothered lives in whatever manner they want. I think that democracy has been the best way of doing that. I think that there should be a principled attachment to democracy, okay? If a democracy is failing due to democratic means, then something doesn't work with that system. And the idea of using an authoritative or an undemocratic measure to fight to uphold a democracy, in my opinion, defeats the entire purpose of the democracy itself. So if we were to sit here and have this debate for another 12 hours, will you convince me that some undemocratic mean is necessary to uphold the democracy? I would just agree with the undemocratic mean and say that that's what our government should become and abandon the entire idea of democracy altogether. That's where I would end up at. And there'd be no way of moving me off of that track. You can't ever convince me that we should engage in undemocratic means to uphold a democracy, because why wouldn't the democracy just return to you the same result again in the future where you're veering off the path of democracy? Then just, it's obviously it's failed, and then you just veer in the undemocratic direction and you pursue whatever new form of government you're interested in.
Yeah, so I understand you're not interested in having the conversation, so all I'll say in summation is I don't think you have to use undemocratic means to change the system. I don't think you have to go as far as Dan's, again, sequestering Republicans. I don't think you have to do that. I think you just simply have to elect Democrats and get them to use the power which is democratically conferred to them to change the system. That's all I'll say.
Like what?
So,
Like putting everyone who disagrees with in jail.
No, not at all. So the particular would be dealing with the Supreme Court. So you could democratically expand the Supreme Court. You could democratically pass term limits, and you could change jurisdictions. For example, you could remove certain jurisdictions using, I think it's Article 3 of the Constitution says that Congress can take certain types of cases away from the Supreme Court.
So here's a question. We'll just do it on the Supreme Court. How do you expand the Supreme Court?
You would have to pass law. Right now it's controlled by federal statute.
Okay, so then you're saying that you'd pass a law to expand the Supreme Court, okay?
Yes.
Okay, sure. I'll follow you on that. How do you prevent the Supreme Court from expanding in the future? And then you say...
You couldn't possibly. Because there's no, as far as I'm aware, like you guys were talking about it earlier, I don't think there's a way for Congress to pass any sort of like federal law, which can pass by a simple majority.
Okay.
But then
so then the question is that, like, if we've gotten into an issue with the Supreme Court and our way of overcoming that is to expand the court, why wouldn't we just run into another issue with the court when the other side expands the court?
So, Stephen, this is the response. You agree that right now what matters is the partisan balance of the court, correct?
Unfortunately.
Yes, right? And because it's all about partisan balance, and if even at the worst case scenario where this tit for tat, you agree that having the court 50% of the time is better than having the court 0% of the time, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is if it's tit for tat and every time that there's a new administrator or whatever, Congress, they up the number of seats, you would agree that that's more than 0% of the time that the Democrats have Supreme Court.
Right.
I guess this is the way that I would approach this. Okay, my goal wouldn't be to have the court like bouncing back and forth between the sides. The goal should be is that ideally, maybe this is too idealistic, the court shouldn't be politically partisan. Shouldn't necessarily be. But if it is an issue that the court is politically partisan, then I wouldn't favor packing the court. I would favor changing the structure of the court.
Stephen, do you think that the court's politicized right now?
It seems like it. Yeah.
Yes. So I agree with you that at time equals 0, the goal is to remove politics from the judiciary. Mm-hmm. I think all of that went out the window when, for purely partisan reasons, the Republicans did what they did with Garland and others.
Sure.
And that they politicized it. At that moment, they politicized it.
Sure.
And now the question is, now it being politicized, are you going to let it continue to be in their hands for 100% of the time or for 50% of the time?
I wouldn't. I mean, in a utilitarian sense, you'd want it 50% of the time, but the actual goal, I would say, should be like reforming the court. So, like, for instance, the one thing that I've heard suggested that I've never heard a good argument against is the idea that Supreme Court justice terms are limited to, 28 years or something, and every 4 years, new Supreme Court justice is nominated. That would ensure that every single time a president is elected, the president gets to have one Supreme Court pick, and the composition of the Supreme Court will always mirror the elections for president that Americans have. And I think that would be...
That's kind of what Josiah is suggesting.
I'm sorry, hold on. Okay. If he was suggest a change like that, I would immediately agree with that. But
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
was just
agreeing
giving
with
some
that. Hold on.
examples.
I'm not agreeing with that decision because it gets my side more power. I'm agreeing with that decision because I think it's a more fair and democratic way to represent the composition of the Supreme Court. Now, in this particular circumstance, I think my side has been kind of fucked in terms of like representation. But like, I don't think anybody could argue against the idea that it does seem a little bit fucking wild that your Supreme Court picks are left up to acts of God, natural disaster, who dies, who lives. That's insane. It's not very democratic with how the court is done. If we end up in another place in the future where the Supreme Court composition is 6-3 or 7-2 conservatives because conservative presidents continue to get elected, then I say, okay. I mean, I mean, the Supreme Court balance is represented based on the president. And when we vote on president, we vote on Supreme Court picks. We do. I don't know why we voted for Obama because clearly it wasn't for a Supreme Court pick, despite the fact that democratically he's supposed to have that power allotted to him. So like that would be a reform that I would be in favor of, like packing the courts and all this and doing it back and forth. But reforming the Supreme Court to be more democratic, I would be okay with that.
Steven, let's say the current Supreme Court, you pass your plan, but the current Supreme Court says this does not comport with the Constitution because it says for good behavior and you're not allowed to have the system. It violates the structure of the Constitution, therefore unconstitutional. So let's say that you were able to pass the kind of attempt at neutral court reform, but this politicized court, what you just said is politicized, says that that's not allowed. Would you agree after that measure that it's better to have the court 50% of the time if it's going to be politicized than to have it 100% on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, it'd probably be better, but my overall interest or care for the country would begin to decrease off of that. Like anytime you have to make a concession where it's like, yeah, this is really not democratic, but like, I mean, we want our side to win a little bit, so we kind of have to do these underground things.
Right now, we're in a situation where the court is heavily politicized, and so I understand. My fervent belief would be that it wouldn't be politicized, that they would be above politics. But we have to deal with reality as it is, not as we would hope it to be. And so we can't close our eyes and say it's not, because it clearly is. If you read these opinions, they make no sense.
I understand what you're saying, but my issue is I don't think we've gotten to a politicized court through some weird, like, crazy process. I think it's happened because I think the American public largely just doesn't give a fuck. Like, when you guys were arguing so much about, like, oh, this is what he should say to try to energize the American public, blah, blah. Honestly, we should probably just go up and talk about abortion more, because I think that's what people care more than literally anything related to the Supreme Court. That's the state of the republic. But I mean, like, democratically, if that's what your people are supporting, then I mean that's the system has produced this. So I mean, trying to structurally fix the will of the average voter, a system is only good as the people that inhabit it. I think.
I'd say two things. One is, like, nobody likes the back and forth of a haggle. Like, if I'm selling something, and you want to pay $1 for it, it's like, okay, well, let me start at 80 cents and maybe we'll land there. No one wants to do that. Everyone wishes that you could just go in there and say $1, but it's just the way it is. Now, the other part.
Wait, how does it apply to anything that we're talking about?
Because you're like, oh, I don't want to take it 50%. How it should be like this. It should be that, like, every year, 4 years we get it. Well, it's not that way, and it probably never will be that way. So the best that you can get is you can get it half the time. And
but hold on, it doesn't have to do with getting it half the time or all the time or whatever. It principally comes from where do these decisions stem from. One is more democratic and one is less democratic. I don't think we should ever haggle over democratic principles. Those are non-negotiable.
I was using haggling as an example, but the other part is a thing of privilege that you have. It's okay for you to be like, well, I really don't care if we have it half the time. It's like, it's kind of shit. Well, there's a lot of people, like, especially like immigrants or gay people or things like that probably give a lot of a shit about having it half the time versus none of the time. Okay, so we have to not just be like, well, fuck it. I mean, if it's gonna be fucked, we can't do it. We got to think about everyone, the people that are underrepresented.
But that only works insofar as you believe some undemocratic system will turn out better, I guess, results for people living under it than some democratic system. I don't believe that an undemocratic system does that. So I don't think that supporting short-term undemocratic measures will somehow lead to long-term happiness of people. Maybe in a very short-term sense you will, but I think you are going down the road of destroying your democracy.
Okay, fair enough. So basically what you're saying is you think it's better for, I don't know, immigrants or whoever you care about in this country that they have no representation on the Supreme Court? Or do you think it's better that they might have it like every other 4 years or something?
If you chose one or the other, probably every other 4 years.
But you don't think it's a this or that. You think there's another option?
We're backing up first, and it's whether do you think that principally you should fight for a democratic system, or do you think that you should fight within an authoritarian system and vie for power within the authoritarian system? And you're arguing that, well, like if we speak about it consequentially, we should fight for the stronger authoritarian. And I'm not as interested in that fight as I am for fighting for the democratic system.
It seems like the Democratic side, the Democratic Party especially, is less interested in things like gerrymandering, and we already know that Republicans benefit very heavily when it comes to senators.
I think it's a great example, Dan, because there you have a Supreme Court decision called Rucho versus Common Cause, and that said that partisan gerrymandering is constitutional. And so they said that, yeah, you're allowed to partisan gerrymander. That's totally constitutional. And so now we're in a situation where what I feel like the Stephen argument would be, well, no, we want states to pass laws where they have independent, neutral individuals apportioning their states or dividing the states up, gerrymandering it fairly according to like contiguous districts and what makes sense and population centers. Like that's the kind of Stephen approach. But Republicans are just going all over the place, making the craziest districts. In that situation, Stephen, don't you agree that the Democrats should gerrymander the fuck out of their districts?
If a thing is, if you've been granted the ability to do a thing, and democratically we've all agreed that this is a thing that you ought to be granted, I mean, assuming it's not violating some core principle of democracy or whatever, then yeah, I think you should operate to the fullest extent of whatever you've been granted.
Can I ask,
yeah.
the Democrats have the ability to stop Trump's Supreme Court picks? Did we hold the Senate or something? We didn't?
No,
if we did, would you have supported them doing it?
No, probably not.
No?
Maybe for one of them.
Wait. So you're telling me, Stephen, that the Republicans denied a hearing and vote for one of their Supreme Court justices, and if the Democrats held the Senate when Trump had his nominee, you would say, have the hearing and vote anyway?
Yeah, I know. It's so a Cox principle.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Wild.
Nope. That is insane.
Okay.
So then you should be against all this gerrymandering stuff.
I don't know if gerrymandering. I don't know how the districts were done before. I don't know if gerrymandering is like a core principle that adheres to
some
democratic
states. Prior to Rucho versus Common Cause, I think like New York, for example, they made fair laws about fair districts to make it more. And by fair, I mean like they don't look crazy. They're comporting to town lines, all that stuff, municipalities, so that it's more like compact. They look good on a map. That's what I mean by fair. They're not going according to the most Democrat advantaged maps. Do you think in the aftermath of Rucho versus Common Cause that said that it's constitutional to have gerrymandering, that Democrats in Democrat states should be doing the fair districts or the Democrat lean districts, knowing that Republicans in similar circumstances are 100% going to do the Republican
I would have to understand the rationale behind the ruling, which I don't understand. But there's two ways that there's two things that could happen. Either one, I would look at it and I would fundamentally disagree with how they ruled on it or something, and I would say, well, this actually violates a core feature of democracy that I feel, so we should do everything we can to change it. We shouldn't play within those bounds. Or two, I would say, you know what, I don't know if I fully agree with this. Maybe I do, but whatever. But I don't think it's like a core violation of democracy. So yeah, you should operate fully within like the bounds of whatever that thing is in gerrymander if the court said that you can do it.
Yeah, so I think that this is exactly the situation that we have. Like,
I don't think that the recent rulings, or when you talk about things like packing the court, these are things that I think that are hitting way more to the fundamentals of our system operates, and if we're allowed to gerrymander.
We understand that Congress absolutely has the constitutional authority to increase the number of seats. That you're not even going to deny that. It is the truth. And so in terms of like who has the power, the Constitution of the United States, our structure, our founding document, it's undeniable, explicitly grants the power over the Supreme Court expansions to Congress. That is just undeniable.
Okay, just because a power is granted doesn't necessarily mean that you would agree with it or that it even comports with democracy. No.
The framers
you just cited the I'd have to know more about the opinion for the gerrymandering.
Sure, not to hammer too far into this, but you've given this you changed my mind on this a long time ago. We both agreed that there are ways to coup the government that would be fully within like the legal principles.
Okay, I'll say that, yes, I understand that just because something is constitutional doesn't mean that I'd be in favor as a democratic principle in keeping with the spirit of the nation. I guess I will agree with that, actually, when you say that. That said, in the specific cases, as we're talking about, let's use Dan's example, where there has been a tat or tit, right? Which is the Republicans denied Garland a hearing and vote. And there's an opportunity for a tat. And that will never be reviewed because the Supreme Court will say that is a core exclusive power of the Senate on whether they want to have votes on stuff. It will be unreviewable, totally a political question. Now that there's an opportunity, so there'll never be like resolution on this fact. Now there's an opportunity for Democrats to do the same. And you're saying they should withhold it for principles and give Trump his Supreme Court pick.
Yes. I think that if you begin to engage in a form of tit for tat like that, I think that along with that is an admission that the system has fundamentally failed. And if you want to go along with it, you can, but now you're pushing for something. Every action you take like that is a step away from democracy and a step towards some other form of government.
Is it a tacit admission that the system's fundamentally failed or is fundamentally flawed? And do you recognize any meaningful distinction between them? I think it would
no. When I say failed, actually, you're right. When I say failed, I'm actually I'm assuming that a democracy is supposed to, produce some ends. But maybe that you could argue that that's a feature. That's the system working as intended. And I would just disagree with how the system plays out, I guess. You could argue that. I don't know if it's a huge difference in this case, but.
Okay. Anything else?
I will say, I don't know how much game theory plays into this, but I remember that the most effective strategy, there was this game, it's like, how do I describe it? But basically, tit for tat is the most effective strategy that there is for dealing with game
theory?
Yeah, nothing beats it. Like, that's the best strategy, and it wins most of the time. I think there was a Veritasium video about it, and I don't know. I think it's crazy that you wouldn't use the tools, especially when they're being used against you. That's like
especially when they're in the explicit authority of the body. It's not like we're breaking the law here. It's not like Dan's example. It's we're doing what's allowed, and the other side set a precedent of, in bad faith, denying a hearing, and you started off by saying, well, maybe just one, and then you're like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, probably not. I think the issue is that if you have a principled attachment to the way a particular thing works, then the assumption should be that if you adhere to that thing as much as possible, that it'll deliver you your good ends. If we're saying that we need some form of tit for tat, then our system is dysfunctional, or we're just viewing it differently, I guess.
I feel like your system, all it guarantees is that the people that are the most ruthless and the ones that are willing to go the farthest are the ones who will always succeed. And then the ones on the other side who are like, no, it shouldn't be this way, are the ones who will always lose.
Cool. Then just have do a dictatorship then. Do a monarchy.
Well, that's what
why waste time on...
No.
If you don't do this, that's what it turns into, right?
Are you becoming a dictatorship supporter?
No,
Yes, Dan is for temporary dictatorship, yes.
Well,
that is true. Yeah,
I am saying. I feel like the way to not have it.
But arguably, all of you guys are temporary dictators. Because anytime the democratic power gets unbalanced in a way that you don't you're saying that the president should take extraordinary means within this newly undemocratic system to return it back to the democratic system.
When you bring up the Shabbat elevator, okay, this is the Shabbat elevator. The rules say you don't have to confirm a Supreme Court judge, and you're like, well, technically everyone does it, so fuck it, we'll do it. But that's not the rules. The rules say you don't have to. You can tell them to go suck a dick, and
it's
you
different
don't.
than what Dan is saying. So what Dan is advocating for illegal action. We have a situation where it's a norm that you're supposed to do it, but it's within your power to not do it, and they violated that norm to their benefit for political ends. And it was in their power to do it. And so technically, I don't think it's breaking democracy necessarily in that big sense for you to do it tit for tat. I just think that it's...
I would go further than you, and I would say at this point, Democrats, if they want to be effective, can't just wait to constantly be doing their tats. They need to be effectively using every tool that they can to accomplish their goal. Anything less, it's like I'm a shareholder in a company, okay? I expect them, every action they do, to be the benefit of shareholders. I've elected you. You should be doing everything you can to accomplish your goals, and if you're not, you should be fucking subverted and have someone else in your spot.
I don't agree with that.
You have a fiduciary duty to do that.
Yeah, you have a fiduciary. Yes, exactly.
That is literally a little Dan's Goebbels right now. Wait,
I'm not.
I have the mind killer, Destiny. If in a very preposterous set of circumstances, Destiny, is someone talking? Esports.
No.
Are you saying something?
No, that was my wife in the background.
Oh, she hates me. Sorry.
No, she's listening to it. Really.
Oh, okay. Everyone's wife hates me.
Would that be esports?
No. I meant that he's a propagandist. I'm sorry. I should have used another propagandist. You're like the Stephen Miller. Oh wait, he hits Jews.
Base.
Yeah, they are misunderstanding. We're already in the authoritarian.
Even
system.
here's the mind killer. If Trump wins a second term this election cycle, and for whatever reason, Democrats win the Senate, and there's a vacancy on the court, should the Democrats give Trump his Supreme Court pick?
I mean, yeah, I think you kind of have to. Yeah. Did you just leave?
Whoa. I think there's no way he had to have just dropped.
Yeah, no, he.
Oh, he wanted to be
it's
dramatic
rough.
or whatever. The reality is that if you refuse it, then we're just basically saying that from now on, no Senate is ever confirming a Supreme Court pick for a president unless they are like matching the party. Basically, that's what we're saying.
Or
we're done
they're
doing
centrist, which is good.
Okay. We've basically given up on the Senate confirming opposite party Supreme Court picks, which I think.
Or unless they trade something like passing some sort of signature legislation or something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So Stephen, my last question for you is: do you think that is it fair to say that systems of government, particularly democracy, require reciprocal good faith?
Probably, yeah.
Is it possible to have good faith when one side doesn't reciprocate?
Probably not. But
Does
this is your issue, though. This is the issue, is that when you guys are talking about this, you guys are trying to figure out structural solutions for a sick public. And I don't think that's possible. If we were having an issue right now where through some fucking weird, queer, abusive power, like 10% of the electorate was able to wield an ungodly amount of power, then maybe that I'd be like amenable to like, okay, well, what can we do? Like, this is obviously fucked. But this isn't the issue. The problem right now is that half the United States supports Donald Trump to be president. That problem is so unfathomably fucked. There is a sickness in the American mind that he's that popular, and you will never structurally fix that problem because the problem isn't the structure. The problem is the people underneath the structure. The only way you can fix it is to find enough ways to oppress that side, in which case you basically become a dictator. You're engaged in some form of authoritarianism. You cannot fix a sick public with a different structure, especially if your structure, well, not if your structure is democratic.
Isn't the idea that right now the right is doing everything they can to pull everyone to the right as much as possible? Media disinformation, donations, super PACs, going fucking crazy. Isn't the idea that the left should also do the same thing? So hopefully there's the equal amount of tugging on the rope so that we land in the center where there's a balance, as opposed to just being like, oh, I'm not going to do anything. Go ahead, pull as one as you want.
No, you keep saying this like, oh, but what you're saying is that like you should be a dictator to counter a dictator. Like, oh, well, that could never go wrong. Like, oh shit, well, he did something bad. Well, two wrongs make a right. Isn't that the saying? I think that is exactly what you're saying. That is exactly what you're saying. No, you don't land in the center by tugging Democrats versus fascists. That's not a land in the center. You land in the center by having liberals on the left and liberals on the right, a Republican Party and a Democratic Party who are both firmly Democratic, disagreeing over how to run a democratic country. You don't have it by having a tug of war between fascists and liberals, or fascists and people that support democracies. That's not how that works. There should be no tug of war there. If there's a tug of war there, your system has failed. That's a failure of the people.
But there's always going to be people. Name a country right now that doesn't have a far right or a far left party that would love to put in an authoritative leader. You can't. There is one.
That has
Sweden or
that has 50% of the support of the public.
No, obviously not. That has 50% of the support of the public, but that's because we're in a unique spot where we only get two parties and that's it. We don't get. Okay,
well, whatever. Then maybe that was the failure of our system. Then we should have had coalition governments, and the two-party system fails for this reason. Then maybe that is the issue, and then the system is fundamentally flawed. But the fact of the matter is that right now half the people in the U.S. are willing to support somebody who is a fascist. That's not a thing that you solve with like, oh well, what if we just had more reciprocity with Senate confirmation hearings, and then our 50% fascist base of voters will perform better in our democracy. That's not how that works.
Wait, but it is how it works. Like, you had half the country that didn't want black people to be integrated into schools, and then the other half did, and there was compromise, and eventually that happened as a result. You're not going to have everyone constantly being ideologically agreed to things. There's going to be people
It's not about
who don't want what you want.
No.
Don't you have?
No.
Okay.
It's not about ideological agreement. There are core values that you need to be an American. And if you disagree with them, you should either get kicked out of the fucking country, something that I would get banned for saying, or you should do a violent revolt to take over the country. If you are illiberal, if you don't agree with democratic values, in my opinion, you have no place in this country. You should fucking leave, get whatever, or kick the fuck out, in my opinion.
But
there is
it's
no
not...
compromise. I don't want to compromise with people that are anti-democratic. I don't want to compromise with fascists about how my government should be structured. If you want to argue that there should be no minimum wage, no protections for abortions, that corporations should be allowed to do whatever, that's fine. That's okay. We can have those disagreements. I may have huge disagreements with Republicans over what this country should look like economically. Get rid of all welfare. Fine, that's fine. But if you want to start to make arguments that the president of the United States should be above criminal prosecution, or you want to make arguments that that you should be able to take these measures that are authoritarian in nature, that doesn't comport with my view of American values.
Off, those are Supreme Court people that did this. This wasn't a vote that went out saying should the president be king. Those were dudes that made that happen.
You keep saying this thing over and over again. I don't know if it's going to keep coming over again. You're incorrect in assuming that it is only the Supreme Court that has floated this. The only reason why it is a question is because Donald Trump, the last president of the United States, who's the current nominee to be president again, is making that argument. That's the only reason this is even being considered right now. Now, we can argue that we disagree with how the court has treated it, but the reality is the last president is the one with the court case, and he still has support from half the country.
Yeah, I think that's not good. That's sad, but I don't think the way forward is for one side to just roll over and let them pull the entire tug of war.
I'm not saying I'm just saying that you're describing this as a tension, that there should be a healthy tension between left and right. Do you think that there should be a healthy tension between how much of our laws should be secular in nature versus how much should be Sharia law? That let's say our population was 50% Muslims, that, okay, well, we're going to only implement these tenets of Sharia law for our country. And that's a healthy tension that exists when we go back and forth and agree and disagree on what should be implemented or not. Do you think it'd be a good thing?
Me personally, I don't think it would be a good thing. What about if the population became 90% Muslim?
I also wouldn't think that would comport with democracy, but at that point,
not if you're in the 10%.
Sure, but then at that point, you wouldn't have a democracy anymore. You'd have a switch to a theocratic style of government, probably. In which case, okay, fine. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can change the structure of my country to appease 90% of the population that want a theocracy. At that point, you don't have a democracy. You're just done. You leave, or you live under the theocracy. But you can't structurally change it to appease 90% of people that want a different thing.
I don't think Republicans want fascism.
They
just
do.
Want Donald Trump.
Yes.
No.
They do. They do.
They like Donald Trump. They don't understand. That's not the...
Okay, you can assume that. Then fine. Maybe they want fascism through ignorance.
You think they want a king?
Yes. Absolutely, okay. Yes. Unequivocally, yes. Absolutely. And you could try to say, well, what if we pulled them in a total fucking vacuum, this particular question, and maybe you might be right on some hyper-specific, divorced from all context polling in a vacuum. But the reality is if you look at how Republicans talk about what Donald Trump should be able to do, you look at how they talk about how he should, how he can demonize the entire media as the enemy of the people, that all of the Democrats have engaged in unlimited amounts of corruption, that every single part of our federal institutions are rotted to the core, that the FBI, the CIA,
I understand all this. Yes,
that's fascism. What you're talking about is fascism. That one man needs to come take control of the entire government, suspend the Constitution, and rise above every other institution in the government to assume power for himself. That's a fascist.
Okay. I understand that's a fascist. I'm just saying that there's no counter on the other side. One side is doing all of this crazy, everything they can with super PACs and gerrymandering and everything else, and then we're just supposed to be like, oh well, democracy will confirm you, but you won't confirm ours. I don't know. I'm not trying.
Yep, true.
What?
We should. Dan, here's Dan wanting to rape our political opponents. That's so base, Dan. Oh my God. So Steven says, hey, we should have a principled attachment to democratic principles and hope that democratic principles turn out good. And here's Dan going like, oh no, we should rape all of our political opponents if they try to rape one of ours. Nice one, Dan. Good one.
No, I think Democrats should do everything legally within their
Yeah, and you just said that the president didn't you just say the president has God emperor powers? So he should go rape people, right? And say that was part of his core powers, right? That's the Dan argument. That's so smart.
I don't think that would be effective for the Democratic Party to do that.
Really? If you told all Republicans we're going to rape you if you go to the polls, you don't think that might deter a few enough to win an election?
No, I think that would probably start a war and make the country bad, and I wouldn't want that.
Oh, you think that would start a war, but sequestering half of Congress to pack the court wouldn't start a war?
Listen,
your argument is nonsense. It's fucking retarded.
I said we're starting with a speech. We're starting with a speech.
Oh, so we're just going to threaten to rape them first.
No rapes. No rapes.
Hitler started with a speech in the beer halls.
Okay, but listen, we're starting with a speech about not wanting the power. Okay, that's the biggest difference. We don't.
Yeah, and nobody would take him seriously, so that eventually he would have to follow through on it.
Maybe he follows through in some small way to show the power that's now there, and that energizes the Supreme Court. I think the only way that the Supreme Court would be energized to change the rule is if Biden was going to use those powers against the Supreme Court themselves. I feel like if I was in the Supreme Court, that would make me want to change the rule pretty quick to be like, wait a minute, these are the rules of what a president can and can't be done. So maybe using it specifically towards them is the best way to do it.
Or maybe they all just go and hide on Trump's super yacht and they wait for the next election.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not good.
Yeah, but the issue isn't the system. The issue are the people in charge of the system. But you don't think that most Republicans want the things that they all vote for and emphatically say that they want over and over again. So I don't.
The thing I'm most confused about is the seating of the hearing for the Supreme Court justice and how the Republicans refused to do it. Now, it's always up until that point, it had always been done on, ceremonial grounds. Just that's how it was done. But then it wasn't. But then again, there was the amount of Supreme Court justices changed like 6 times or something back in the 1800s. And then it didn't. Things change. And then it was used against you, and you're like, well, why wouldn't you use it back? That part I don't understand.
Why you're saying things change, like things were made explicitly undemocratic to defeat one side, and you're equating all changes to that. Are there prior changes that worked like that?
Well, would you say expanding the court in the 1800s was undemocratic?
I don't know. Why was the court expanded? Was it
It was done 6 times.
So the first time was.
Wait! Why was it expanded 6 times? What were the reasons for the expansions?
I'll let him. He knows the answer. Fuck if I know.
Oh my god.
Go ahead. The first time was.
Well, the first time was when President Adams was leaving office. He wanted to reduce the possibility that the incoming Jefferson government would be able to seat Supreme Court justices, so they shrank the size of the court. And then when Jefferson was in power, he was able to get Congress to reverse it. So that was like the first example. And there were other instances. The other 5 times were for pretty explicit reasons as well. The reason that I find that one so instructive is because Adams and Jefferson are founding fathers. So we always envisioned the Supreme Court to be this apolitical body, but from its very inception, it was political. It was inherently political. Even the founding fathers use it as a political football. I'm not saying that's right. It's just the reality of it. So last thing I'll say on this, just a couple of points. I was trying to find the poll itself, but there was a CNN poll, and I think I linked it to Steven a couple of days ago. 70% of the American people do not agree with the Supreme Court decision. So it is anti-democratic in the sense this is not what the people want. However, to Stephen's point about what Republicans want, if you change the polling question to, should Trump be given presidential immunity versus generic president, there's a sizable shift. The Republicans, especially MAGA Republicans, there is an appetite for elevating Trump in particular. So I think he has a point there. Stephen, eventually I do want to have this conversation with you. I think you're more interested in it, clearly by the passion of your answers, than you want to let on. I think that there are some good pro-democratic reasons. I think you can democratically change the system to make it more democratic, and I don't think you have to frame it as just like a naked power grab by defeated Democrats. So that's all I'll say. But it was a really good conversation. I'm looking forward to catching up to the 3 hours that I missed. So
all right,
I'm going to dip, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Be careful, man.
Dan, good talking with you, buddy.
You too.
Yeah, I'm going to dip as well, so take it easy. Have fun.
See ya.
Boy, look at you getting free content all day, not having to do fuck all. That's a dream. Well, you just sit there writing things down. You haven't written much, though. I've been keeping an eye on you.
No, yep, true. I've wasted 5 hours on absolutely nothing of value. It's been
That's not true.
Good use of time.
Debated the future of the Republic. Mm-hmm. People are going to be inspired by this debate. There's going to be sub videos that are created. sub videos of their sub videos. Some staffers might watch this. Some ideas might get created. You never know what butterfly wing effect this stream has in changing the course of history as a result of it.
Wow.
You're so black-pilled, bro.
I'm not black-pilled. I just don't think you change a bad population with a different structure. I just think it's fundamentally
you know what it
misguided.
is?
Yeah.
I hate to say this because I feel like people are going to definitely use this out of context. The people aren't the problem. It's the media.
Okay.
Like, they're good people. They just are fed. They just don't have the full picture. Like, I don't know. That's it. Like,
yeah, but these are arguments against democracy, I guess, right? People can't be trusted with unfettered access to tons of different types of information.
Maybe so. Like, narratives and discourse changes. Like, I think being gay was definitely not poggers. If you go back, I don't know, 70s, 60s, definitely not okay at that time. Certainly not in the 50s. Now, like, you know, for the most part in the United States, if you're gay, I mean, there's still probably some issues that you're going to run into, but for the most part, you're integrated into society. Things change. The media controls a lot of that. I don't know.
Yeah, but the media is the way that it is also because the people enjoy consuming that type of media.
Well, the people want what you tell them they want. God, it sounds so fucked. It's like the Henry Ford, like, people want that faster horse. They just don't know, like, until you give them something else to want, right? Like, at the end of the day, what blood sells, right? That's like the Night Stalker thing, right? Like, if it bleeds, it leads. Yeah. All right, I have to go have dinner, and then there's July 4th stuff I'm doing. It's a good conversation. You should be less doomer pilled. You especially can make a big difference.
All right, I'll keep that in mind.
That means you don't give a fuck, and you're very delayed on whatever it is you're trying to do today.
Be careful. I love you.
Bye.
Jesus Christ.